My name is Darcy, and I'm one of your friendly neighborhood teen and 20-somethings librarians. Today I'm going to be telling you how to make a woven paper star decoration. Let's talk about what you'll need. If you picked up the kit, you should have 1 page of templates, a stack of book pages, some metallic paper, and a pot of glue. You'll also need a pair of scissors or a craft knife, and it's also super helpful to have access to a hot glue gun. You don't absolutely need one, but it will make the final construction much easier. If you didn't pick up the kit, don't worry about it. You can find all of these items available at a craft store or even a general store, and the templates will be available in the description below. So, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is cut out a couple of my templates. You've got a lot of them because I find it's helpful to have multiples instead of worrying about one of them ripping, but you don't really need to cut out all of them at once. I'm just going to cut out around the outside of maybe 2 of them. All right, now that we have some of our templates ready, we're going to talk about the actual components you're going to need to cut out of your papers. So, to make a woven star, you're going to make 5 points, basically. And each point is made up of 2 copies of this template cut out of 2 different colors of paper. So for this craft, I've given you guys the book paper and some metallic paper because I think they look nice and festive together, but you can use any kind of paper really. Regular plain paper, not cardstock, is preferred. So if you want to make a crazy star like this out of pink and yellow, go for it. You really just need the templates and the idea of how it works. So to cut out our template pieces to make each of these corners, we're going to take one of our book pages and I'm going to fold it in half, hamburger style. So on your template, you'll notice that there is one long side that has a dotted edge. This dotted edge is the fold. So you're going to line up your template on the fold of your page, and you're going to cut out around the whole thing and each of these slots. Now you can do this with scissors or you can do this with a craft knife. I'm going to go ahead and use a craft knife because I think it gets straighter cuts across both sides of paper. That is one component cut out. So now I will need to cut out one of these in the metallic paper to make our first point. So that is one of each. Now, we could start weaving with just these 2, but I find that the cutting out of these components is kind of the most irritating part of this activity. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out my other 4 of each color so that I'm ready to just weave them all together at once. I'm gonna go pretty fast and we'll see you back here in a minute. Before I get started, I will say, if you're having trouble with the template that you cut out, if it's too wobbly, just go grab another template. It's totally fine to use another template. Every single time you do these, you can make yourself another copy of that sheet of paper, print yourself out another one, or you can tape these guys back together and then just cut along the lines. They're just like kind of hard to hold on to because they're so wobbly. Now we have cut out all 10 of the pieces that we need to weave. We can start weaving our sides together. So you're going to take one of each colored paper to start with your first weaving. All right, so you're going to hold one type of paper in one hand and the other color in the other hand, and you want the folded sides to be facing towards each other. I'm going to go with book paper on the left, silver paper in the right. You're going to take your very first little loop and you're going to slot the very bottom slot through silver, like this. And you're going to take that silver, that bottom silver that you're weaving with, and put it through the loop of the second loop of the book paper, like so. And you're going to take the third loop of book paper and run it up through your bottom silver loop, kind of like this. Things are going to be a little wiggly. Just be very gentle with it, especially down here at this junction point, because that's where it can rip. And then you're going to go through the fourth book paper loop. And then to get that last book paper loop, you're going to need to pull everybody down and kind of align it here at the bottom as best you can. It's going to be tricky. And you're going to gently take the paper, the top paper loop, the longest and skinniest, and thread it through the very end of your silver paper loop. So you can just kind of get it started and then gently work it in there. Haha. And then tuck everyone down. Oops. It might not be super happy, and you might rip your first few. It's totally okay. You should have plenty of book paper and quite a bit of the metallic paper. You can always practice first with some other paper as well. I would recommend cutting out some in 2 tones though, because it's easier if your papers aren't the same color. It's much easier to see where you're going. And that is your first strip woven. So you should end up with your 2 template pieces on top of each other, connected by this bottom strip on both sides, like so. But on the inside, you can see we're starting to weave them together. And we are going to follow this kind of pattern for all of our silver loops through our book paper, but inverse. So for this next silver loop, I'm going to very gently thread the book paper, thread it through the book loop, because you want to do opposites for each line. So carefully, I might rip this. Gently, gently, gently. So the first one on the second line of silver goes through, and then the second one, the second book loop, goes through the silver. Silver will go through paper this time. Paper through silver. Might have to pop that loop open a little bit. There we go. And then just through that last one. And you kind of tuck them down. You might need to re-pull down that bottom one to get them as flush as you can, because otherwise you're going to have trouble when you get towards this last one at the end. So that is our second strand of silver woven through. So you see we've got a little bit more that's connected in the middle, but we've still got our last 3 flaps of silver unattached and the top half of book paper unattached. So we'll carry on. We're going to start again with the silver over the book paper and then through the book paper. I find when you're close to the base here, when you're weaving with the silver side, it's easier to move for these first two strands of book weaving. It's easier to move the silver, and then as you get further along, it's easier to move the book paper. But whatever works for you, however you can make this work is good. So we'll tuck it down a little bit. We'll open this guy, silver guy up, and tuck the book paper in through this run of book paper. And now we'll get this last little tab. The last one is always the weaseliest. Let's see. Haha. If you can get it started, you can kind of gently work it from here. Just be careful not to rip. But if you do rip it, you can often repair it. You'll just need some tape and to be a little bit clever. So the last row is the trickiest. Be very gentle. Over. And to get in the first time with your last row, what I like to do is kind of pull it apart a little bit, get the point of my silver going, and get it in between those book pages. You can kind of pull things a little bit. Again, try and be gentle. And you'll notice I am not actually in my correct place on this tab, but I find it's easier to get this first woven one through and then make sure when I'm close to the end, I can situate and migrate my silver so it's going the right place. And you see it's warping a little bit here at the bottom. That is okay. Just be gentle. Try not to let anything rip. And you should be okay. We can kind of finesse it at the end. And then you pull it apart a little bit until you can see that point, and then you grab it and gently work it through. Then with this last point, I usually go from the book paper side. See if we can't get it in there. Sometimes you need an extra bit to pull it open. Aha, but this one worked out. And that is your first woven side. So now that everyone's kind of situated, you can see we've got a little pocket and our colors are mixed together. And it looks awesome. So now you only have to do this 4 more times to get a star. It really does get better as you go. I definitely ripped the first handful of these that I made a couple of times. You can always, if you can tape from the inside, you're good to go. Nobody's going to see the inside of these once you're done. They're only going to see the outside, which has such a nice effect. So a thing to note when you're starting with your papers, when you're starting a new weave, is that this is our first place we weaved, and we put the silver on the outside. And that meant that we're going to get the silver on the outside at the top. So whichever color you put outside on the very first weave is the color that's going to be your point. And you want to start each of your star points with the same color, because otherwise you'll have one that's off. Unless you're intentionally mixing them up, that's fine. But just make sure that you know which color you're starting on the outside. So I'm going to do the other 4 of these in kind of fast forward mode, and then we'll come back once we've got all of our 5 points woven. Okay, we have all 5 of our points actually finished weaving. So don't be stressed if this takes you a long time to do. It is a-okay. Took me over an hour to get this far, and I have made, I don't know, at least 2 dozen of these stars. So it's a little tricky. If you have to tape stuff, that's totally fine. Just keep plugging and you will get it. So now we have to turn these points into a star. The very first thing that we need to do is pop them open. So this is not actually the front of, so what you're gonna do, take one of your stars and turn it sideways, one of your points, and turn it sideways, and kind of gently start popping it open and smooshing it. And once you have the line down the middle, once your front and back are perfectly aligned as best you can, you're gonna flatten it out and give yourself a nice hard line on each side. So you'll have a point like this. Now, when you turn it back front and kind of gently pop it closed a little bit, you've got a lovely sharp point. So this is one point of your star with its full seam down the front done. So you're going to pop out each of your 5 points just like this. Now that all 5 of our points are folded and popped out, we are going to tuck our excess flaps in. This is how we're going to assemble our star, is with these little flaps at the bottom. So they fold really neatly along your woven line. So you're going to fold in all 4 sides on every point. Make them nice and tidy as you can. So that is one side folded in. The flaps don't have to go all the way down. We're going to be working with those to adhere each point to the other. Now that we have all 5 of our points woven, folded, and tabbed down, we are ready to assemble. So the basic assembly is going to be tabs to tabs like this. You've got a couple of options with this. If you picked up the kit, you should have some kind of white Elmer's glue. This will work, but it is pretty tricky, especially when you get to attaching that final point. What I would absolutely recommend you use instead is hot glue if you have access to it. The low temp hot glue is perfect for this, and it makes things much easier. So we're gonna be going ahead with hot glue, but the method for using the white glue is exactly the same. I'm just gonna use my finger. You're just gonna put a little bit of glue on one side. I usually apply the glue to the silver side because it's easier. Don't put on a ton. You want a thin layer, but you want the whole tab to be covered. So you put the glue on one side of one point, take another point, and you affix the tabs to the tabs. Now you want your points to be connected, both the tips here and the point of the side. So it's easiest to do one tab down first, kind of scooching them in the middle. Squeeze them together a little bit. And come in here and get our second tab in place. Now it's a little fussy. It's not going to want to behave itself very well, but you just kind of have to finesse it as best you can. And then once you've got them set, just kind of pinch it until it is fully dry, or at least until it is tacky enough to dry to let it sit and fully dry before you try and attach the next point. I cannot emphasize this point enough. If you try and attach all of your points at once, especially with the kind of white Elmer's glue, then you're going to have a really difficult time because you're going to be pulling your star apart as you kind of manhandle the next point to get it into place. So while we let that guy dry, I'm going to go ahead and show you a way you can adhere these with hot glue. So I'm going to take one side and my low temperature hot glue gun, and I'm going to put a fine line of hot glue down, but I'm only going to do one side, and then I'm going to quick attach the other side. And kind of smoosh them together. This is why low temp hot glue is nice. If you're working with a true hot glue gun, then do not smush this because you will burn yourself. Let it kind of gently put it together, or use some like little pliers or something. See, I got a little lump of hot glue sticking out there, but it's not the end of the world. I don't care. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. So I'm gonna prep my tab here first, make sure it's sticking out nice. And then I'm going to do a little run of hot glue right there, not a whole lot. And squish them together. And then pinch on the inside. And if you notice, like if you kind of miss the center or something, if they're not quite attached, you can always go in and add a little bit more hot glue on the inside just to reinforce it. You can do the same with the white glue or tape. Tape is always useful for this if you have some tape at home. You can tape the inside tabs down just to make sure they're going to behave themselves. And with hot glue, you always get tiny strings. I'm going to go ahead and try and get as many of them off as I can right now. So that is 2 different ways you can attach your stars. So now I am going to go ahead and attach these 2 sides together, and then all we'll have to do is add in our final point. Aha! And see, I went too fast and my white glue isn't dry yet. So if you're using the white glue, make sure everything is super dry before you move on to the next point. Okay, so we've got 4 points on our star and we gotta get in that last point. Now, here's how I tend to work it. You're gonna squish on the insides of these bottom 2 points to kind of open up your middle opening a little bit more. pop the tabs out here just a little bit so that they're a little bit more accessible. And you're going to do the same on your last point. All right, so he's going to go in right there. So I'm going to hot glue these two sides and then slap this sucker in there and see if we can get it to work on the first try. Oh, that's one side. Maybe. All right, well, we got one side kind of there. So we'll go in here and we'll do some tacking. And again, you can do this all with white glue. It will work. You're just gonna have to be more patient. All right, so that's one side. So now we just have to get, oops, these last tabs to be friends. So, to get this last bit glued in, I am going to crack it open a little bit and get some glue on those tabs. And hold it together where I want it to sit when it's done. So I'm going to hold it right here, and I see it's popping open here. That's okay. You can go in and fix with white glue or super glue or hot glue, whatever glue you got that works. But we want to make sure that this side is really well adhered together. So if you did a better job gluing on the first try than I did, then yours is already done. But I'm going to go in and kind of tack these points that are being fussy, like this guy, and then we'll be back in just a second. Okay, and once you are happy with your glue job, you are done. That is a woven 3D paper star decoration that you have made all on your own. It is remarkable, and I can tell you people are very impressed by them generally. So if you want, you can kind of build a little stand for these to go on top of like a Christmas tree or something. If you wanted to put in a display, you can thread some string through your top weave of a point and hang them if you like, or you can just have them hanging around. They're just kind of cool, and you can make them out of any kind of paper you like. They don't have to look like this. I just think these look kind of, tasteful and fancy. This project is from the book, The Art of Paper Weaving, 46 Colorful Dimensional Projects. It is a book that we have at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, and I would highly recommend you check it out and look into the other cool projects that they have in that book. It is really awesome, and I really enjoy all the different crazy paper weaving things that you can do. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or if you're running into any trouble, please drop a comment down below. We will be watching those and can help you along as best we can. Thank you again. Y'all have a great day. Bye.